Hello, I'm Chris. Welcome back to my Reading Corner. This is my year anniversary on Booktube, so I've decided to do a video a little bit different. I'm doing a top 12 favourite reads, and then I've got a few honourable mentions in a few different categories, just because I felt like they didn't quite fit in the top 10, and also just to add a bit more bulk to this video, given that I was planning on doing a year up review of what all the videos I've done, what I've talked about, the books I've read, that kind of thing. I've not been well since Sunday, so I've not really had a chance to prepare that. I was hoping to be in work and be able to watch my videos back and then make notes as I was quickly, mental notes as I'm listening to stuff, and quick notes if I had the chance. Not quite a chance to do that. So I thought, well, I'll do this instead. So, these are the honourable mentions / for different reasons, different categories, whatever. First up, we've got a series. And also, not only this is a series, it's also my favourite editions of any books I have. I just love these editions. Okay, so the first one up is Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm sure you're all aware of Lord of the Rings, but I absolutely adore these editions. I love the dragon on the front of the Hobbit. I love the reflective mountain at the top and the ring in the middle, and then the runes at the bottom as well. I don't know if you can quite make that out, but there's like runes across. Well, actually, it might be easier to make out the bottom of the book there. That's his language that he wrote. So yeah, really good editions, really good books. I haven't read these for a while. I do need to reread them soon. I would like to say this year, but I feel like my year is pretty stacked this year for reading so far. But it's a possibility. And then the Two Towers, again, you can see the two towers in the film, in the book. And all the ring as well in the middle, all different colours. Again, the runes at the bottom, his writing across the top and bottom. Just because I just love these editions. So yeah, I'm sure you all know Lord of the Rings, and if you don't, then you need to find out, because it's worth the read. It's worth they're all definitely worth a watch. And then, sorry, I've been struggling since Sunday. I had like a flu. It was all in my nose and face, and then it was all like, I was just wiped out. Spent a lot of time on the sofa and in bed. But I'm better now, so we'll get on with this. I probably will do a year-long review, maybe, at some point, hopefully soon. But I'll carry on with this now. So next up, we've got two classics, Frankenstein, Dracula. I couldn't mention one without mentioning the other. I love both. Probably prefer Dracula over Frankenstein slightly, just because I didn't read the introduction to this, because I felt like it would have took me ages. And I really like the letter style of the book over this one, but I want to read them again this year, so September for Frank, just because I feel like then it gives me a month to really enjoy Dracula. So that's that. Again, well worth reading if you've not. And I've got a couple of poetry collections. Just quickly mention Allen Ginsberg's Howl, Kaddish and Other Poems. This one's quite a thin one, but Howl's quite an important poem, and also it was banned, so it's quite an interesting read. It's quite a lot to read. I think it's quite a long poem. So yeah, it's worth reading, definitely, if you can get a copy of it. But yeah, that's Allen Ginsberg's Howl, Kaddish and Other Poems. And then also, one of my favourite writers is Charles Bukowski. His Burning Water, Drowning Flame. And I got this from Waterstones in Leeds when I went to Damnation Fest. I'm not sure when it was when I got it, but I think I went to Waterstones and I was staying in such a dive. It was awful. Couldn't wait to get out the dive. It was honestly the worst hotel I've ever stayed in. Honestly, I went getting some beers the night I got there, and then got to my room and just didn't want to leave the room until the festival. Come back from the festival and didn't want to leave. Couldn't wait to leave my room then on the Sunday. But yeah, really good. Really enjoyed that. And then next up, got a couple of short stories. I'm going to go with one I recently read again, Hot Water Music. I read this last year. I just found this book. That's also by Charles Bukowski, by the way. I love how stark the covers are. But yeah, I read that this year. I just feel like that is it's just a really concise short story collection. I don't mean concise in the stories are short. I mean the language is it just seems tighter from Bukowski than I'm used to, but it doesn't lose any of that Bukowski like the juice in the sentence that he has. It keeps it, but it just felt a bit more. The stories just flowed a bit better. And then next up we've got Ken Liu, The Papermen Agree and Other Stories. Now the Papermen Agree is a beautiful story, so heartfelt, so heartfelt. But there's all sorts in here. There's one. Sorry. There's a story about your soul being different things, like an ice cube or a pack of cigarettes. You know, when you burn them, that's it. There's a story about a cyborg and she keeps changing herself so she's faster and thingy like that. And then there's one about a guy who kills women who have cameras in the back of their eye and stuff like that, which is obviously a bit darker, but this is a really good story. I'm going to read my favourite couple of sentences in this book, if I can find the page. Yep. It is in the face of disasters that we show our strength as people. Understand that we are not defined by our individual loneliness, but by the web of relationships in which we are immersed. A person must rise above his selfish needs so that all of us can live in harmony. The individual is small and powerless, but bound together tightly as a whole. I think that's brilliant. So that's that. Highly recommend this. Highly recommend Ken Liu, but highly recommend that more. Well, not more. If you like fantasy, I'd recommend that and his Dandelion Dynasty. But if you like just short story collections or just novels, then try that. You can't go wrong. There's such a mixture in there. It's so good. Right, last up, I've got a couple of non-fiction books and then I'll get into the top 12. So this is The Plots to Kill Hitler. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And it says it's by Richard Dargy. Now it says the men and women who tried to change history. Well, so yeah, it's all about different plots to kill him. And I didn't realise, I'm quite new to reading about World War II and I didn't really know. Obviously I expected there would have been plots and stuff like that, but never expected it to be quite as interesting as that. I mean, that's a thin book. It's only literally less than 200 pages, but wow, it's such a good read. It's well worth reading. So that's that. And then finally, probably my favourite non-fiction book so far of all time, currently at least. The one I'm reading now is pretty good, but it's not gonna hold a candle to this, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, because this one's brilliant. But 50 Dead Men Walking by Martin McGartland. Wow, brilliant. So this is really good. So this is about a guy who kind of abhorred violence and stuff, basically, and ended up being in the IRA, but under, he was under undercover. So he tipped off the authorities' risk detection, and yet heroically and fearlessly continued to pass on life-saving information. So yeah, he was saving lives, he was behind the scenes. It must have been pretty scary. If the IRA found him, well, you wouldn't have read the book, but it's just such a good book, and it's fast-paced. It doesn't read like non-fiction either, I don't think. It's hard to put down. 50 Dead Men Walking, please read it. You will not be disappointed. And I wouldn't usually say that I wouldn't be so forceful about recommendations. Okay, finally we're going to go into the top 12 now. First up, we're going to mention Jack Kerouac's The On the Road by Jack Kerouac. Now, the reason I wanted to read this was a few reasons. One, I was getting into like William S. Burroughs and stuff like that. Because I know not a lot of people, although some people like Burroughs, they don't necessarily like Kerouac. And I'd probably say I prefer Burroughs to Kerouac. But yeah, he's kind of Beat Generation. Same with Ginsberg. But yeah. So yeah, this is about Soul Paradise. Young and Innocent joins the slightly crazed Dean Moriarty on a breathless, exuberant ride back and forth across the United States. The hedonistic search for release, of fulfillment through drink, sex, drugs and jazz becomes an exploration of personal freedom, a test of the limits of the American dream, a brilliant blend of fiction and autobiography. Jack Kerouac's exhilarating novel defined the new Beat generation and became the Bible of counterculture. So it's really interesting. But one of the reasons I wanted to read it, one of my mates, Harry, he also has a YouTube channel where he talks about music, although I don't think he's posted for a while. But he has a tattoo and it says, "Somewhere along the line the pearl would be handed to me." So that's why I wanted to read this. Wasn't disappointed with it, I really enjoyed it. So that's that. But yeah, it's kind of like, I can't think of the word, but autobiographical, because it is about him and his friend. I'm not sure who it is now. It's making me want to read it again. Yeah, it's about him and his friend. Can't remember who his friend is. I'm not sure it's Lucian Carr or something like that. But yeah, really good book. And then next up we've got... Sorry, I seem to have a tickle in my throat. Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club. This is a brilliant book. I mean, if you don't know what Fight Club is by now, it's it's a film about a guy who invents a fight club and kind of probably takes it a lot further than you'd ever expect. So I'll tell you what it's about. Every weekend in basements and parking lots across the country, young men with good white-collar jobs and absent fathers take off their shoes and shirts and fight each other barehanded for as long as they have to. Then they go back to these jobs with blackened eyes and loosened teeth and the sense that they can handle anything. Fight Club is the invention of Tyler Durden, projectionist, waiter and dark, and an anarchic genius, and it's the only beginning of his plans for revenge on a world where cancer support groups have the corner of the human warmth. So yeah, it's about an insomniac who ends up inventing a fight club. It's really good. I mean, it's violent, but it's good. I mean, I don't condone violence, as a couple of these books do are quite violent, especially this next one, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. This is really interesting. It's also got like their own language in it as well. It's like own made up language. as well. In this nightmare vision of view from revolt, 15-year-old Alex and his friends set about on a diabolical orgy of robbery, rape, torture and murder. Alex is jailed for his teenage delinquency and the state tries to reform him, but at what cost? So yeah, it's violent. I'm not saying, violence is a good thing, but, I kind of don't condone it in real life, obviously, but in books and movies, I can in a way, because it's art, not art, but it's creativity as a medium kind of thing. It's, I'm not saying it's accepted, but it's, in films, I think it has a place. Especially like things like Die Hard. There's quite a lot of violence in Die Hard and stuff like that I like watching as well. But I could also watch stuff that doesn't have violence. But yeah, I find them interesting, books like that about subculture. Sky was never, growing up, I never really had fights or anything like that. I never carry a knife, anything like that. I knew people who did, but I never felt like I needed to or wanted to. Yeah, but just crazy. Anyway, so moving on, my next read I don't actually have a copy of. I picked the wrong book by mistake, so I'll just show this one. Yukio Mishima, The Sound of Waves. It's about, I kind of see it as a bit like Aladdin, in a way, how Aladdin fan likes the girl who's the princess kind of deal. It's like about, and then obviously the guy thinks he's not good enough, and then the dad doesn't either, and then he tests his personality and he's how he feels about his daughter and what kind of a man he is. He's metal, if you like. It's a really good book, and it's one I can't stop thinking about. I realise another one I'm going to throw in the list as well is Stoner. That's a brilliant book as well. I love that book. It's about a guy who's a farmer and then becomes an English teacher, and he has a wife and he's a kid and an affair as well, and it's really interesting, and you see how his life changes and stuff. And that's by John Williams. That was another really good book that I enjoyed last year that I'm going to add to this list. So this is now 13. With that one being an honourable mention. Sorry, I'm struggling now. So next up, we've got William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch. So this is basically, I would say, like a bunch of vignettes, I want to say. Kind of like, there's no real narrative to this, but it's just a really interesting book. And it's one I want to reread. I feel like I'm going to end up doing I think everything I've picked out is a reread, really. Apart from Bukowski, really, I think, because I plan on reading everything back to back anyway, once I finish my Bukowski read this year. So that's that. Then up next is Haruki Murakami, is Norwegian Wood. Now I know Haruki Murakami is a problematic author for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. I separate the author from the work itself, probably not right to do so, but if someone writes a book you enjoy, then I take that as a book I've enjoyed. I don't really think, I might not necessarily think the same as the author, but I separate myself from that. I think this is quite a sad book, really. But it's one I've read a couple of times and really enjoy. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with, although I read an author, I don't necessarily condone the author. Thoughts or actions or anything like that. So Norwegian Wood. When he first hears her favourite Beatles song, Tori Wanna Taby, Watanabe, I'm not sure if that's pronounced right, recalls his first love for Naoko, the girlfriend of his best friend Kizuki. Immediately he's transported back almost 20 years to his student days in Tokyo. Adrift in a world of uneasy friendships, casual sex, passion, loss and desire, to a time when an impetuous young woman called Midori marched into his life and he had to choose between the future and the past. So it's a really good book, really interesting. I really like Murakami's. Well, it's the only one I've read, but I really like it. But yeah, I know there's quite a lot about Murakami that people don't like, but I quite like it. It's not the only book I've read, actually. I read What to Talk About when I talk about running, but it's the only novel I've read. Next up, I'm sure this is an author everyone has heard of, if, at least once, if not read. And that is, of course, none other than the man himself, Stephen King, and what a book this is. The Stand. This is massive. Now, I've only read a few. I'm only an early constant reader. I'm up to Firestarter. I'm reading everything in publication order, so it's taking me a while, but The Stand is brilliant. I decided to read the full-on edition, because why would you read the smaller one and then the longer one? But it's such a good book. I love dystopian fiction, and I think this is one of the best. Although it's not my favourite, it's one of the best. I could have picked this, or I could have picked The Shining, would probably be a close second. I don't have my wallet on me, but I have a Shining wallet. Next up, these are my top 5, and I would say these are my top 5. Although I do feel like there could be some interchangeable reasons for why I like them. These are my top 5. So, The Stand. Sorry, let's go on to The Stand a bit more. Yeah, so it's basically about a good guy and then a woman trying to lead them. Everything. Well, let's tell you what it's about, because I feel like I'm. When a man crashes his car into a petrol station just north of Arnett, he brings with him the foul corpses of his wife and daughter. He dies before he reaches the hospital, but it doesn't take long for the appalling plague which killed them to spread across America and the world. It is a long time before the few stunned survivors emerge slowly and painfully to build a new world. But now the dreams start, dreams that foretell the coming of the dark man and the strengthening of his empire. His worn-down boots walk the roads, his red eyes pierce the night. Surely he's the apogee of evil, warlord of the charnel house, prince of torture and death. An ancient woman struggles against the force of evil, but is it by chance the work of the trash can man, the pyromaniac, evens out the odds? Who is manipulating these people? What powers and forces are behind this horrifying Armageddon, where ordinary people are caught in a titanic struggle between good and evil? Yeah, so it's brilliant. And that's the man himself, Stephen King. Brilliant. So I can't wait to read Firestarter, but I've not read any King for a while, so I need to get on the ball with that. This is my top 5 now, so I'm going to go through these. Probably saw the first one then, but we'll go through it anyway. So, in number 5, 1984, what can I say about this book? A lot of things come out of this book. Big Brother comes out of this book. There's Newspeak. It's about, the world's gone to hell, really. The words we know now, the Bible, the dictionary's getting reduced in words, and it's just such a good book. I feel like it's dystopian done well, but I feel like there are not a better, but a more tighter job done than this, but this is still good. George Orwell's a brilliant author, so that's that. 1984, I'm sure a lot of people know, but I'll tell you about it. Winston Smith works for the Ministry of Truth in London, chief city of Airstrip 1. Big Brother stars out from every poster The Fort Police uncover every act of betrayal. When Winston finds love with Julia, he discovers that life does not have to be dull and deadening, and awakens to new possibilities. Despite the police helicopters that hover and circle overhead, Winston and Julia begin to question the party. They are drawn towards conspiracy, yet Big Brother will not tolerate dissent, even in the mind, for those with original thoughts. They invented Room 101. So good. George Orwell is well ahead of his time writing this. George Orwell's brilliant as well. I mean, he wrote Animal Farm as well, but then I also love Down and Out in Paris and London and The Road to Wigan Pier as well. I mean, this is the opening line to this book. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Wow, what a way to start a novel. And then number 4th place is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I love this book. I remember being in FOP in Manchester. I think it was near my birthday. And I think I got 4 books, and this was one of them. I just read it and thought I have to buy it. A father and his young son walk alone through burned America, heading slowly for the coast. Nothing moves in the ravaged landscape, save the ash on the wind. They have nothing but a pistol to defend themselves against the men who stalk the road. The clothes they are wearing, a cart of scavenged food, and each other. So basically, it's just about a man and a boy on the road. The earth is barren. There's not much around. There's not much food. Excuse me. There's also scary men on the road. Bad guys on the road, so they've got to be careful of that. And it's just dystopian, done really well as 1984. And if you're into dystopian, I don't think you could go wrong with The Stand, 1984, or The Road. But my favourite of those four, my favourite even above those 3 would be Fahrenheit 451 or 451, however you want to say it. This is by Ray Bradbury. Guy Montag is a fireman. His job is to burn books which are forbidden, being the source of all discord and unhappiness. Even so, Montag is unhappy. There is discord in his marriage. Are books hidden in his house? The mechanical hound of the fire department, armed with a lethal hypodermic, escorted by helicopters, is ready to track down those dissidents who defy society to preserve and read books. See, this is what it says, and funnily enough, here is what it says. The classic novel of a post-literate future, Fahrenheit 451, stands alongside Orwell's 1984. Just dropped a book on the floor. Fortnight. And Huxley's Brave New World as a prophetic account of Western civilization's enslavement by the media, drugs and conformity. Now, I have read Brave New World, but I don't remember enough of it to put it on this list, so I feel like I have a lot of books that need to be reread. That would be one, and all these are, to me, rereads. Although I'm planning on reading that next month because it's my 3rd favourite read. So I'm not planning on reading Stephen King, so I want to get to a certain point where I've read about 20 books before I start rereading stuff, as well as carrying on with the new stuff. So next up, my 2nd favourite book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson is driving to Las Vegas with his attorney, the Samoan, to find the dark side of the American dream. Roaring down the desert highway from Los Angeles, they realise that there's only one way to go about such a perilous task. Getting very, very twisted. Armed with a drug arsenal of stupendous proportions, a duo engage in a manic, surreal tour of the sleaze capital of the world. I don't think my voice is holding out much longer. The perilous chemically enhanced confrontations with casino operators, police officers and assorted middle Americans have hallucinatory humour and nightmare terror. Riotously funny, daring, original and dead serious at its core. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a classic statement on the collapsed dream of the American 60s. Such a brilliant book. So fast-paced, full of drugs, but it's out there, it's crazy, it's riotously funny. It's just such a good book. And then finally, my favourite book, I read this. This is the first book I start every year with. Started the book this year with it. Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. In a frolic of cartoon and comic outbursts against rule and reason, a miraculous weaving of science fiction, memoir, parable, fairy tale and farce, Kurt Vonnegut attacks the whole spectrum of American society, releasing some of his best loved literary creations onto the scene. But it's just such a good book. It's honestly brilliant. It's sad. It's interesting. It's such good. There's drawings as well, which Vonnegut did. Snakes, buckets of chicken, all sorts. So that's that. I'm going to do a quick 5 now. I've finished all this, my top 12 and all my honourable mentions, but I'm going to do a bonus top 5 now. So I'm going to do a top 5 authors. So if I was picking my authors, this is in no order, this is just off the top of the dome. So I'd say, top 5 authors would be probably Kurt Vonnegut, obviously he wrote Breakfast Champions. I'd say George Orwell, he obviously wrote 1984. I'd say Charles Bukowski, Hot Water, Burning Water, Drowning Flame, obviously. But he also wrote his Chinansky novels and his Pulp, which I've not read yet. So that's 3. And then I probably would say then it would be William S. Burroughs. I've read Naked Lunch, Junkie Queer, The AIDS Letters, and Hippos Aboard in the Tank. And Nova Trilogy. And then if I was going to go... I've read more Hunter S. Thompson than I've read Ray Bradbury. I'd probably go King. And then I'd probably put in... Yeah, I'd go King then. So yeah, that'd be my top 5 authors. Which, they're all in my top 5 favourite books as well by those authors, which I just wondered if that would be the case. It was just quickly off the dome. Anyway, I'm going to leave that here because I feel like I can't speak anymore and my throat's dry. So I'm going to go and get some more water and get some more reading done. But yeah, this was my year anniversary book video, so I'll upload this now and I will try and do a year-end review by the end of the month of February, so it's still within the year. I don't think I'm going to do a Friday reads, but if I do, it'll be a quick Friday read, so I'll see how I feel maybe about 9 o'clock later. Okay. If I'm in with what I'm reading, I'll probably do one tomorrow night. Okay. I'll see you in the next one anyway. Bye.